Welcome to Empowered by Iron, the podcast for female strength athletes by female strength athletes. We are your hosts, Dr. Kristin Lander from Fiercely Fueled Nutrition Coaching and Mary Morton, PhD candidate and weightlifter. Together, we are Empowered by Iron. Hey everyone, welcome to Empowered by Iron. This week we have two different topics to discuss with you. First, we're going to start with injuries and what to do if you get injured. And then we're going to move into to start discussing. Then we're going to move into a discussion about accepting where you are. You can never get great if you don't know where you're starting from. So first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about injuries. And this actually was sparked because, as you guys have heard, Kristin injured her wrist and she was doing a lot of different things to get her wrist better, which has taken a turn for the worst, but I'll let her talk about that. But we also got a group in our Facebook group page, Women in Strength-Athlete Resource, about injuries and what to do if you're injured and what you shouldn't do if you're injured. So we wanted to talk with you just a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, my opinion, if you are injured, the first thing that you need to do if you suffer an injury that lasts more than a day, right? Like if it's something super minor, fine. But if it's something that, the pain is pretty severe or, it goes on more than a few days, get professional help. That's the first thing that I can say. I know a lot of lifters are afraid to go see a doctor for a couple of reasons. And one of them I know is because they're afraid that the doctor's going to tell them to quit lifting. And unfortunately, there are plenty of healthcare providers out there that will just kind of give you a blanket statement like, well, lifting's bad for you. You shouldn't do that. And then there's a whole lot of other providers out there that actually know stuff about lifting, and they may tell you you have to quit lifting for a little while, or they'll help you modify your training. But I think that's everyone's so afraid to go see someone because they're either afraid that they have a really severe injury that they're going to have to take time off for, or that their doctor's not going to understand what's wrong with them and what they do and how they can help them get back to training. So there's a resource out there called clinicalathlete.com, and they have a provider map, and you can actually go in there and put in your zip code and find some providers that know about CrossFit and weightlifting and powerlifting and all sorts of other lifting type things. So it's a pretty cool resource. And the providers that are in there, they are usually athletes themselves, hence the name Clinical Athlete. So that's a super good resource to go to. But I can't urge enough, like, seek some professional help, get a proper diagnosis, because once you have a proper diagnosis, then you can start to develop a rehab program to improve. And if you find the right healthcare provider, they're going to be able to help you modify your training. And also, if it's someone that understands lifting and they say, okay, listen, you can't really lift at all right now, you're going to be a lot more likely to listen to them, I think, as opposed to, I was in physical therapy for shoulder a while back. I had shoulder instability because of my mastectomy surgeries, oddly enough. And my physical therapist was like, well, what you're doing is really hard on your body. You should maybe not be doing it. And I just kind of looked at her like, really? And I was just kind of, I didn't fight her on it. I just kind of was like, okay, that's your opinion. And you obviously don't know about lifting. Because we do put a little bit of stress. We do put stress on our body, but I gotta tell you, as a healthcare provider myself, and I treat, everything from, athletes to, like 97-year-old men, like I see a lot of injuries from people doing a whole lot of nothing. So people come into my office with torn rotator cuffs and they have no idea how it happened. So, and they're not physically active. So I say lift if you want to lift, and find a healthcare provider who can help you through rehab and get you stronger than you were to begin with. So,
But what you shouldn't do is if something's hurting, you shouldn't Google it and self-diagnose. That you may be able to use the internet as a resource and look up things that make, hey, I think it could be this, this, or this. These things seem serious. Maybe I should go see a healthcare provider.
right.
Because for me, whenever I use WebMD, I'm either pregnant, dying, or like have cancer. There really is there is no middle ground, right? Like you're either one of these extremes, and it's not like, oh, well, maybe you just pulled a muscle. For me,
Right.
when I hurt my back, it was pretty instantaneous when I heard it. It was the stupidest thing. I didn't even heard it lifting. I heard it throwing a temper tantrum after I'd lifted. And immediately I could feel it in my back, but I finished my training session because I'm stubborn as a mule. And then the next day, I texted Kristin because if you guys don't know, Kristin is my chiropractor. And I said, yo, this is not better. I can hardly stand. I can hardly walk. It hurts.
You couldn't stand. You couldn't stand all the way up. I remember that.
I couldn't stand all the way up. I couldn't stand straight. I couldn't bend down. Like it was literally locked in the position it was going to be locked in. So I went and saw Kristin for a couple sessions, and she said it could be what else did you say it could have been?
You cut out for a second. Start that over. It could be what?
Kristin said it could have been a muscle thing, or it could have been a disc thing. It could have been a bone thing. Like there were a lot of possibilities, and based on my symptoms, she was thinking it could have been something serious. So at that point,
yeah, you were presenting a little bit like it could be a lumbar disc herniation,
which is not good.
Or not good at all.
Not good.
But that's the thing, is that sometimes when people are so acute, when something's really new, it can be a little bit difficult to kind of flush out a diagnosis, because everything I ask you to do, every test I can do on you provokes pain, because everything hurts. So yeah, it was a little difficult with you. So I said, I think I did tell you not to lift for a little while. I said, if it's not this, it will be better in a few days, and then we'll know.
Yes.
And it was better in a few days, right?
And thankfully it was. But me 5 years ago would have just, or even a couple of years ago, would have been like, whatever, fuck this. I'm fine. I'm in my 20s. I can do whatever I want. And I would have went and lifted. That I've done many things to prolong injuries because I couldn't not lift.
Right.
And I have horrible knees because I ran when they were swollen the size of melons. That's like my main thing, but I wish I'd never done that. But I listened to my provider. I talked to my coach. I said, hey, here's my problem. What can we do? And she said, if it's feeling better, here's just an upper body program that's not going to put any strain on your back. And it was a couple days I was moving the bar, and then a couple more days I was doing heavier upper body stuff. So it went faster because I listened to my provider, but that's because I have a good chiropractor who knows what a lifter is and what a lifter can and can't do,
Yeah. And the other thing, so yours was an acute injury. And a lot of times what we experience in weightlifting and powerlifting and CrossFit is overuse injuries. So things that kind of come up over time. And those are the ones that people are like, maybe I should see someone, but they keep trying to train around it and modify. And those are the ones that I really encourage people, that if you go see someone about it right away and get a proper diagnosis, you're probably going to save yourself quite a bit of pain and be able to get back in the game much quicker, because once you start down that path of, say, like a chronic tendonitis, which is probably one of the most common things that we experience, that can be a really long road back. So it can be something that you battle for a year if you don't get it taken care of right away. So those are the ones I'm like, go see someone and get it taken care of.
Yeah, don't let that stuff just up and let it out into the world of fate.
Yeah. Well, in that, like I said in the beginning, a lot of stuff you can train around if you know exactly what it is that is the problem. Say you have patellar tendonitis, like really severe patellar tendonitis. There's plenty other stuff that you can do. As long as you know, like, okay, that's what this is, you can do other exercises to work your lower body that won't aggravate your patellar tendon. It's not fun. It's not going to be squatting, but you can still do stuff. So, yeah. But
The
also, mhm.
and then take some time and learn, ask your healthcare provider, use resources online, what you can do to prevent whatever it was or strengthen something so something doesn't hurt. For me in my back, yes, it was an acute, momentary, immediate, instant injury, but I could be better in my flexibility and my stability for all my body parts that connect to my back. And
you
for my knees for hurting, I could stretch my quads more. I could stretch my hamstrings so they're not pulling on them. So there's a lot of things you can do to try to prevent the pain that you feel. Some injuries will happen. You may catch a clean wrong and it may hurt your wrist. And there's literally nothing you could do to
right,
stop that from occurring. Shit happens. But if it's something that's happening on a day-to-day basis, maybe, like we said, go see your healthcare provider and learn what you can do to stop it from hurting constantly.
right, right.
Right.
Funny that you mentioned catching a clean funny because that's what I did. I caught a clean wrong. And everyone always wants to say, oh, well, you didn't get your elbows up. I sure as shit got my elbows up. I just messed up the lift in the earlier part. So I got shot out the back when I caught it. And my elbow hit my knee as I was dumping the bar forward. So it wasn't full force. But yeah, so I suffered a grade 2 sprain of my wrist. And immediately I have a injury healing protocol, nutrition wise, that I started immediately. And it was getting better very, very quickly. To the point where after my powerlifting meet, I contacted my coach and said, I think I'm ready to start trying to do some things. And things were going well. I was just lifting light weights, but I think I pushed it a little too much late last week. So now
That doesn't sound like you.
well, here's the thing about where I was at in the healing process is I wasn't experiencing pain. And that's the most dangerous part, because it wasn't fully healed. And I wasn't experiencing pain. It wasn't until the next day after training that my tendons in my wrist were really irritated. It's not as much the initial injury, but I just probably pushed it a little too hard, a little too fast, which is something that I have a history of doing my entire life and am trying to be smart. And so I, on Monday had to say to my coach, I don't think I should be doing any Olympic lifts right now. Or I think I just told him it hurt. And he was like, all right, no more overhead, no more cleans, not until it's better. So we'll do take 2. But but I wanted to share with you guys some nutrients that you can use for healing that I've used. My husband had a severe grade 3 ankle sprain, like his whole foot and ankle were black and he couldn't even wear a shoe. And we got him on this protocol pretty quickly. And he was up walking around really fast. So there are nutrients that your body needs for the healing process. And as long as you make sure you're kind of flooding your body with those, then it can heal a little bit quicker. And even more importantly, you can get the collagen fibers in your tissues to heal in a stronger fashion so that it's basically just better healing. So you are more completely healed and less likely to injure that area again. So, because the single biggest predictor to an injury is a previous injury to that area. So, I'm going to list for you guys a list of some nutrients and what they do. And if you want to grab a pen and paper, take some notes. Otherwise, if you're in our Facebook group page, I'll post something in there, a PDF, or just make a post about it. So the first nutrient that is really good is boswellia extract. And what that does is it inhibits an enzyme that degrades the synovial fluid in joints during an injury. So it basically is going to stop that process from happening. So that's boswellia extract. The second is bromelain. And a lot of people have heard of this. It's an enzyme that is taken from pineapples, and it is really good at relieving pain and also shortens the duration of the inflammatory phase of tissue healing. Vitamin B6 as well as B12 are two essential vitamins for tendons, ligaments, and flexibility of those tissues. So those are good to be getting in your diet, but also supplement with them when you're injured. Niacin, especially the form niacinamide, prevents the degeneration of collagen, which collagen is the building blocks of joint tissue and cartilage. So when you are injured, you have higher demand for that. So you want to get some niacin. Vitamin C is another really big one, really important for collagen formation. So you guys are probably sensing a theme here. It's all about collagen health because that's what all of your connective tissue is made up of. Magnesium is another really important one. In fact, it's important for tendon and ligament health, but it also helps relax your muscles. So a lot of people take magnesium when they have muscle cramps or just preventatively take it every day. Zinc is another trace mineral that is vital for protein synthesis and DNA synthesis. So it helps ensure that any tendon and ligament repairs properly. And then manganese is the last one. And this is a really, really important one because it activates a wide range of enzymes and it's necessary for building collagen. It's a major component in tendons and ligaments. So collagen is really great at holding on to water, which allows the connective tissues with high collagen content to remain hydrated and resilient. So this is probably one of those that every lifter should probably be supplementing with manganese just to help keep their connective tissue healthy because we break it down at a much faster rate. So that is nutrients for injury healing. If you go see a provider that from where I talked about the clinicalathlete.com, if you find a provider there, a lot of them may utilize some soft tissue techniques that are really good for healing as well. Or if you just know someone that does any of these techniques, go see them. If you're injured, they will help you recover. If you've ever heard of gua sha or Graston or instrument assisted soft tissue mobilization, it's kind of, it looks freaky and scary. It's like a scraping of the tissue with either like a plastic or a metal tool. And it leaves bruises, not always, but often it leaves bruises. And people watching someone have it done looks like it's horribly painful. It's really not that painful. But those tools are really good at encouraging like rapid localization and effectively treating the areas of like tissue fibrosis. So it helps prevent excessive scar tissue being built up. It also works well with chronic inflammation. And it really is like this controlled micro trauma that is occurring to the soft tissues when you scrape it like that. And it stimulates just a little local inflammatory response. But that response, it initiates the reabsorption of excessive scar tissue and then helps the remodeling of the soft tissue structures so that scar tissue has a way of kind of making like a spider web, and it's not as strong, and you have all these fibers going in different directions. So it helps align them so that those tissues are as strong as they were initially, or as close to it as we can get. The other one is Mary's favorite, cupping. Mary, if you guys have ever seen videos or pictures of Mary anywhere, she's usually got cupping bruises all over. She has a cupping set.
Cupping. It's so difficult for me though, because I do it by myself. So
yeah, so cupping uses either plastic or glass cups that you can either use a suction gun basically it pulls the air out and creates a vacuum basically underneath, or there's a different type that's like a silicone. It's a little bit more malleable, and you can almost do like a cupping massage. But at any rate, the point is that you're bringing blood to that area, which reduces pain and promotes circulation to the area. So it's really effective with just chronically tight muscles too, which is what you use it
leaves
for.
you with some sick bruises. So sick.
You had at the Arnold, I think you had like cupping bruises like all over your legs, all over your back. They were you were like covered in them.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love it. I wonder what people at my work think, because no one there does any of that. So I wonder, it couldn't be a hickey, right? Because it's way too circular and it's in really weird places.
And there's like lots of them.
There's lots of them. So they're probably just like, what the fuck is this girl into? Little do they know. It's cuffing.
That's funny.
All right.
One last piece that I have to say about if you have an injury to a tendon or a ligament or even a muscle, don't stretch it until it's healed or until it's mostly healed. So for instance, my wrist injury, if you can like picture what happened is I had a barbell in the front rack position and with my elbow hitting my knee. So my wrist got bent back really far. So I do not want to be stretching those muscles that were affected and the tendons that were affected and the ligaments really. So you can do strengthening exercises. This is why it's so important to get a proper diagnosis, because if you stretch tissue that's been overstretched and you stretch it too early on, you're just going to prolong your injury. So don't do that.
Don't do that. Plus, it makes it more painful depending on what your injury is.
Right. Depending some things like a quad strain or whatever, you might be able to do just some really light stretching, more or less just to get blood flowing and to not stiffen up, but you don't want to do any. Right. There
Fuck
you go.
that. That's $20 on Amazon. Best $20 I've ever spent in my entire life. Yeah. Get it.
Anyway. And I don't ever want to talk about injuries again, because I feel like we're always fucking talking about me being injured and it's stupid and I'm just over it. This is minor. This is minor. This is no big deal. It's minor. I'll be back at it in a couple of weeks. No problem. As long as
until the next one.
No.
Okay, so that was all about injuries and what to do if you get injured. Now we're going to talk about something that I feel is very important to anyone's journey into literally anything in life. But we're going to specifically talk with it about nutrition and strength training or lifting. So let me paint a picture for you. When I was deep into my eating disorder, I always wanted to be somewhere else, someone else. Someone else's life is easier. Someone else's life is better. Someone else has the job that I want, the food relationship that I want, the body that I want. And where I'm at right now sucks. It's stupid. It's horrible. I don't like it. I would spend so much time being hard on myself because I wasn't someone else. I wasn't at the point where I thought I should be in my life. And what I realized once I finally got out of it is that that was probably the most toxic thing to my healing that I could have been doing to myself. I wasn't letting myself say, hey, here you are. This is where you're at. That's okay. Get better. So I wanted to talk and just kind of spread the love message a little bit about accepting where you are right now. Now, I want to be clear when I say this because it's not accepting where you are right now as though you're never going to move anywhere. You're never going to change. You're never going to get better. You're never going to adapt. That's not what I mean. What I mean is you can't ever move or get anywhere in life if you don't stop for a second and take inventory of where you are. Yes, in that moment in my life, I was overweight. I was unhappy with my body. I was unhappy with my relationship with my food. And I wanted to be anybody else. But what I came to realize is that that's okay. I needed to loosen up the reins on myself, look at myself and say, yes, Mary, you are a little bit fluffy right now. You don't really feel comfortable in your body. That's okay. Let's change that. But that's where I was right now. And I think that's so important, especially when we get into lifting as well. We have a lot of wonderful, amazing women, especially in our Facebook group page, and you listening who maybe you're just getting into powerlifting and maybe you're just getting into weightlifting, or you've been in lifting for a year, or you maybe been lifting for a couple years and you think that you should be somewhere else than where you are currently. And so you scroll through Instagram and you see so many other women lifting heavier than you are, looking better than what you perceive. Not saying that you don't look great because girl, you fabulous. Okay. But you know, we all have this ideal body of what we would want. And maybe we found someone on social media that we think embodies what an ideal body would be like. And so we look at that and say, that's what I want. And then we spend so much time focusing on these other people and their journeys and like what they're doing and how they're doing it, which, you know, is fine and dandy if you're rooting for them. But if you're doing it because you wish that was you, you're just wasting your time. You are spending way too much time focusing on someone else's life. You're neglecting your own life and your own happiness and your own journey. And that's unacceptable. You have to take a step back and take inventory of where you are, because where you are is fine. It is okay. You can change and be that person if you want. You can get onto the national stage. You can hold world records, but you can't do that until you accept where you are at this moment in time. And I, as part of this Eat for Strength guide that Kristin and I are doing, it's a 16-week course. If you haven't already heard about it, go join our Facebook group page. We announced more details about like when it's starting and how much it'll cost and what have you. But this Eat for Strength, we want to teach you as an athlete how to eat to fuel your body. But part of the Eat for Strength journey is, and what I want to dive into is accepting where you are. Because the hardest thing about eating for strength is knowing that you're not on a cut. You're not in a bulk. You're not trying to actively change your body. You're just trying to actively fuel your body. And if you're not okay with where you are right now, it's going to be so much more fucking difficult. Right, Kristin?
I totally agree. It is. It's really hard. So it's so easy to look at the people that you look up to and have that be your goal. And that's awesome. And you think, okay, I'm putting in the hard work. How come I'm not there already? Or that person is really, really strong and they're also really lean. And so I'm going to try to be lean because that must be how I get to be them. Like I'm going to try to look like them. And I think that that's really dangerous because we have all of these people then who want to try to cut weight for their first meet and do all this stuff. It's like I love the quote that says the only way out is through. So the only way to get to be to the level of the person that you are admiring is to go through the process that they've gone through to get them there. And your process might look a little different,
It's going to
but
look totally different.
But it's
not even a little.
It certainly doesn't start with cutting weight to get stronger. It doesn't work that way. It just simply doesn't. If you are completely new to training, if you're completely new to lifting, yeah, you can probably be getting stronger and losing weight at the same time if you're brand new and if you're 30% body fat or higher. But if you're in like the low 20% body fat and you've maybe been doing some activity for quite a while, you're just going to be lucky to hold on to strength during a cut. And let me tell you, it is no way to train as an athlete by cutting weight. Like that it sucks when you're trying to increase your total and you're cutting weight. Good luck. Like you might increase your total a little, but you're really shooting yourself in the foot. And so and you're
shooting yourself more in the foot if you're then demonizing yourself. It's not just about, we're going to focus a lot on cutting and fueling yourself and trying to convince you, if you join this course, that this is the way for you. But it's with so many other things in life. If you are going through your process and you're constantly demonizing where you are right now and saying that it's horrible, it's stupid, you shouldn't even be here, you're worthless, you're useless, who are you? You're never going to be able to take that next step because you're never going to have the confidence in yourself to do it. The hardest part about eating for strength, like we said, is that you're not cutting, you're not looking for big changes. You're learning to look at your body in the mirror and say, all right, I've got a little fluff in places that I'd like to not have it, but I love myself. I love where I'm at. I love what my body can do. Therefore, I love that fluff. And it's a process that we want to help you work through because both Kristin and I have worked through that. And we've done it in very different ways. Like Kristin does it through macro tracking and I do it through intuitive eating, which are two different things that we are going to be teaching in this course. So this was just a big thing to tell you to sign up for this course because it's going to change your fucking life.
I want to make a comment about the fluffiness that gets talked about a lot during this process because I think that freaks some people out. And eating for strength is not mean bulking. It does not mean...
Right. Let me clarify. I had this fluff before. I've had it for 5 years. It hasn't gone away.
Right. So, but you slowly are leaning out. That's the thing. Is that you are slowly leaning out because you haven't stopped training and your body hasn't stopped responding to training. It's doing the opposite. You're able to train heavier, you're able to train harder, you're able to recover better so that you can train harder tomorrow. You're getting stronger, you're building muscle, and that in turn is all of that is expending more energy so that you're not at a caloric deficit, but your body you have some recomposition going on. You're growing muscle and burning a little bit of fat. But there are days during this process because, if you've ever tried to lose weight, you look in the mirror, step on the scale, and you think, oh, well, my weight's down, or I feel lean today, or whatever. And generally when you're losing weight, it's, most days, not all days because it's not linear, but most days you're like, oh, I enjoy waking up feeling lean. Well, when you're not on a cut, you don't always wake up feeling lean. It's not that you've gained all this weight and you've gotten fat, but it can mess with your head a little bit, which is a huge part of the acceptance part that we want to get into, and knowing that you're okay if you don't have abs. If you want to have abs, fine. But if you just want to have a really high total, great. I almost cried the other night because I had a client who's been cutting weight for a meet. And so she just had her meet. And I said, all right, your meet's over. What's your next goal? What are we going to do next? And she said, I am not cutting weight until I have 1,000-pound total. And I was like, hell yes. I almost cried. I was so excited because to her, she, her total, having a really high total and qualifying for things that she wants to qualify for or whatever is most important to her. And I almost cried. I was so happy. Proud coach.
And that's what we want you to do, you listening. We want you to be able to accept where you are and fuel yourself for the badass training that you are obviously doing. So if you want to learn more about the Eat for Strength guide, the 16-week course, go join our Facebook group page, Women in Strength Athlete Resource. We've got details on there. If you want to be a Patreon and support our podcast, go to patreon.com/empoweredbyiron. The link is in the description of this podcast, and support us for as little as $3 a month. You guys can help grow this podcast into what we envision it will be, a community and a movement. So thank you so much for your constant support. We super appreciate all of you. And until next time, we'll see ya.
See ya.